Hello everyone, welcome in. With the very exciting release of Cities Skylines 2, I'm sure I'm not alone in having spent most of my waking moments since exploring the new game. And I'm also sure that I'm not alone in feeling slightly overwhelmed with all that there is to explore. The new progression model, based on XP instead of population, opens up so many doors so fast, and it can be a lot to work through. And while there's a lot that's familiar about Cities Skylines 2 from its predecessor, there's also so much that's different that even some of the familiar things seem almost brand new. And today I'd like to talk about just one of those things and give a nice overview of one of the new features, signature buildings. If you're familiar with Cities Skylines 1, these signature buildings essentially replace the unique buildings from Cities Skylines 1. And if you're new to the city building franchise in general, unique buildings are exactly what they sound like. They're special buildings that can only be placed once per building in your city. And that's kind of where the similarities end, honestly. So first, let's jump into what exactly is different between the unique buildings from CS1 and signature buildings in CS2 before I show off each one of them and the requirements needed to unlock them. The first major difference is in price. In CS2, these buildings are entirely free to place, which is great news since unique buildings in CS1 were quite taxing on the economy, both in purchase price as well as the utilities they consumed. The next major difference is just in what type of buildings there are. In CS1, they ranged anywhere from parks and plaza type buildings to landmarks and everything in between, such as offices, music venues, casinos, etc. And while I'm sure the pool of signature buildings will expand as the years go on, just as they did with CS1, as of right now, they're all buildings, not parks, no parks. Instead, the signature buildings are tied to specific zoning types. In this case, residential, mixed use, which combines commercial and residential, commercial, industry, and office. With those first three, residential, mixed, and commercial, you also have access to two variations of each, the North American style and the European style ones. However, unlocking both versions will require you to zone buildings in both styles throughout your city, but we'll get into more of that later. Sort of in conjunction with that last difference of them being tied to specific zoning types, the last major difference between the signature buildings and their CS1 counterpart is that these buildings are fully functional within the scope of the zoning type to which they belong. In CS1, all unique buildings were essentially just tourist destinations. Even if it said it was a hotel, for example, it didn't actually house tourists. Tourists could visit them, but they didn't actually stay there while in your city. They really just provided an entertainment level or attractiveness boost to your city and were really just there for the vibes more than anything. Again, in CS2, these buildings are fully functional. If you place a signature row house, it will be populated with real-life Sims in your city, contributing to the population count. The same goes for the commercial signature buildings. They'll have restaurants or shops that your Sims can visit and will contribute to the economy as well as the business count in your city. The office and industrial buildings are no different. They have their own specializations, producing specific goods for your city and providing various boosts. I've really only dipped my toes in the water regarding signature buildings so far, and they're already shaping up to be one of my favorite new features. But they do take some work to unlock, but the rewards for doing so and placing them in your city are totally worth it. So now let's get into the really good stuff, showing off each building as well as getting into the details of how they're unlocked and what benefits placing them will provide for your city. Now, one last difference to CS1 is that they unlock quite early, having the ability to unlock your first signature building at your very first milestone of Tiny Village. Similar to CS1, unlocking the milestone doesn't just unlock the building. There are certain other requirements based on population or zoning that will unlock certain buildings. So if we go in and look at residential signature buildings, again, there are two styles for these, North American and European. For the first three categories that have both options, they basically come in pairs and are unlocked the same way, just with different style buildings. For example, if we look at the Rock Musician Mansion and the Pop Musician Mansion, which are the North American and European styles respectively, they are both unlocked with 2,500 cells of low-density housing for that specific style. If you would like both of them in your city, you'll need to be zoning both styles throughout your city early on. Some of the later requirements ask for a certain number of level 5 buildings of that style, so if you want to have level 5 buildings, you'll have to start building them earlier. So now we'll just go through each building. I'll show you what they look like and tell you how to unlock them. And for all of these, any of them that come in pairs, I will have the North American style on the left and the European style on the right. So let's jump into the first set, the Rock Musician Mansion, and the Pop Musician Mansion. Both are opened at Milestone 1 of Tiny Village, and again require 2,500 cells of low-density housing for whichever style you like. And the benefits of placing them are +2 well-being within 500 meters of the building itself. The next set we have is the Film Actor Mansion and the Theater Actor Mansion. Both unlock with the Tiny Village milestone. They both also require 10,000 cells of low-density housing for whichever style you choose, as well as 10,000 media goods produced. Now, media goods are produced by office zones, and while the building technically only requires Tiny Village milestone, you won't be able to produce media goods until you reach milestone 4 of Grand Village when you unlock offices. And then the benefits of doing that are that you get +4 well-being within 1 kilometer of the building. The next set is the Painter Mansion and the Sculptor Mansion. The requirements are, again, the Tiny Village milestone, and then this time 25,000 cells of low-density housing buildings, as well as a citizen happiness rating of 60%. So the best way that I found to actually see what percentage of happiness you might have, since hovering over here does not give you a percentage, is to go into your City Statistics tab and then filter by happiness. In this tester city, I don't have any citizens, so there's no graph here, but when you do have people, you'll see a graph for both these categories, health and well-being, and that should give you a rough number of where you're at to see if you've reached 60%. The next set we have are the Polaris Suites and the Corundum Condos. These are the first medium-density signature buildings, and they require Milestone 2 of Small Village, and then 500 cells of the medium-density housing of whichever style you would like. Placing either of these in your city will give you a +4 well-being within 1 kilometer. Next, we have the Rubik Apartments and the Old Factory Condos. These, again, need the Small Village milestone, as well as 2,500 medium-density housing cells. And placing them will give you a +8 well-being within 2 kilometers of the apartment itself. The next set is the Gatehouse Residences and the Duclidia Apartments. I might be pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize if that's the case. But these ones will both need the Milestone 2 of Small Village, as well as 5,000 cells of medium-density housing buildings. And placing them will give you a +10 well-being within 2.5 kilometers. Now we move into our row housing signature buildings, and the first set we have are the Balter Pines and the Vertigo Square. You'll need Milestone 1 to unlock these, as well as 1,000 cells of medium-density row housing. And placing them will give you a +3 well-being within 750 meters of the building. Next we have the Vista Building and the Constellation Apartments. Again, you'll need Milestone 1 of Tiny Village, and 5,000 cells of medium-density row housing, and placing them will give you a +5 well-being within 1.3 kilometers. Our final row housing signature building are the CO10 condos and the Molari Palace. You'll need the Milestone 1 of Tiny Village again, as well as 10,000 cells of medium-density row housing. And placing them in your city will give you a +7 well-being within 2 kilometers. Now we move into the high-density buildings. These are the ones where just having a certain number of cells will no longer satisfy the requirement. You'll need a specific number of level 5 buildings to get this done. So your city will have to be doing pretty well before you can unlock these. So we first have the Watanabe Tower and the Waveform Tower. Both require Milestone 8 of Big Town and require 50 level 5 high-density housing buildings in either style. Again, so if you want both of these, that would be 100 level 5 buildings, 50 in each style. And then placing them will give you a +6 well-being within 1.5 kilometers. Then we have the Century Castle, as well as Halo Heights. Again, you'll need Milestone 8, as well as now 100 level 5 high-density housing buildings. If you place either one of them, you'll get +10 well-being within 2.5 kilometers. And our final set of residential signature buildings are the Colossal Tower and the Grass Crown. Both again will require that 8th milestone of Big Town, and these ones require 200 level 5 high-density housing buildings. And if you place either one of them, you do get some fantastic boosts, though, of a +12 well-being within 3 kilometers of the building. And that wraps up the residential signature buildings. Now, in the menu, the next one is the mixed residential signature buildings, but I'm actually going to skip those for now and move to commercial, since those are most likely the ones that you'll unlock next, since you have access to commercial buildings, regular low-density commercial buildings, before you have access to mixed residential buildings. Again, these do come in sets of both the North American and European style, with the same unlock requirements between the two. So first we have the Streamlined Diner and the Villa City. Both require Milestone 1 and 4,000 cells of low-density business buildings. Now, these are the first signature buildings that will also give you city-wide benefits, which is really great because you don't need to worry about placing them sporadically. You can place them all in one place and you'll still get the same benefits. And those benefits are a -1% import cost citywide and a +1% attractiveness citywide. You'll also get a +3 well-being within 500 meters of the building. So this next one is the only one that doesn't come with a set. This is just an extra European-style building that has the same benefits as the first one, but it requires Milestone 5 of Tiny Town, not just Milestone 1 of Tiny Village. It has the same unlock requirements of 4,000 cells, specifically of European low-density buildings, and has the same benefits, +3 well-being within 500 meters, -1 import costs, and +1 attractiveness citywide. Next, we get back to our pairs. So we have the food station for the North American style and the auto center for the European. Both require Milestone 1 of Tiny Village, and both require 7,000 cells of low-density commercial. You'll get a +3 well-being now within 1 kilometer of the building, and the same -1 import costs and +1% attractiveness citywide. Next, we have the one-stop station, as well as the marketplace. These require, again, Milestone 1 of Tiny Village, as well as 15,000 cells of low-density commercial in whichever style you choose. You'll get a +3 well-being within 1.5 kilometers now, and again the same -1% import costs and +1% attractiveness citywide. And that wraps up the buildings that only require cells. These next 3 require a certain number of level 5 buildings. So first we have the Square Center and the Fashion Square. These require Milestone 9 of Great Town, which is when high-density commercial unlocks. So you'll need that first, as well as 60 level 5 high-density commercial buildings. Placing them will give you a +5 well-being within 1 kilometer of the building, and again, you'll get a -1% import cost and +1% attractiveness citywide. Our next set is the Marvelous Marble and the Activity Plaza. Again, you'll need Milestone 9 first, and then you'll need 120 level 5 high-density commercial buildings. That +5 well-being will extend from 1 kilometer to 1.5, and you'll again get the -1% import costs and +1% attractiveness citywide. And our final set of commercial buildings are the Capacitor Building and the Emerald Building. You'll again need, of course, Milestone 9, as well as 240 level 5 high-density commercial buildings. You'll get +5 well-being within 2 kilometers now, and again you'll get the same -1% import costs and +1% attractiveness for your entire city. Now we'll move back to the mixed residential signature buildings, which again just combines commercial and residential with residential on top and commercial on the bottom. So the first set of buildings we have is the Iron Press Building and the Epicurean Garden. For these, you'll need Milestone 5 of Tiny Town, which is, of course, when mixed-use residential unlocks. In addition to that, you'll need 500 cells of mixed-use residential. If you place either of these buildings, you'll get a +4 well-being within 750 meters of the building, as well as a +1% attractiveness for your entire city. The next set we have are the Ember Suites and the Figura Building. Again, of course, you'll need Milestone 5, and this time you'll need 4,000 cells of mixed-use residential in your city of either style. This will give you the same +1% attractiveness citywide, as well as a +8 well-being within 1.3 kilometers. And our final set is the Kane Residences and Ludo Square. Of course, again, you'll still need Milestone 5 of Tiny Town, and then now you'll need 5,000 cells of mixed-use housing, and placing either of these buildings will give you that +1% attractiveness citywide and a +10 well-being within 2 kilometers. Now we'll move into industrial buildings, and I cannot overstate how excited I am to use some of these in my cities. And here's where things get a little bit more interesting and maybe a little bit more difficult, or at least just a little bit more specific in regard to how exactly they're unlocked. Their benefits as well are greater and a little bit more specific too, and unlike with the residential and commercial, there's only one style of these buildings, and mostly they relate to specific industries or products. So let's dive in. The first one is a vehicle factory, and you'll first need Milestone 3 of Large Village, which is when specialized industry unlocks. However, you'll also need 10 oil drilling area hub buildings, and specialized oil industry doesn't unlock until Milestone 8 of Big Town. So really, you'll have needed to get to Milestone 8 before you can unlock this building. But it does give you some pretty good benefits, including a +2% industrial efficiency citywide, as well as +10% oil deposits citywide. Next, we have Ground Earth. This building requires Milestone 3 of Large Village as well, and then 10 mining area hub buildings. Now, the first mining that you can do is stone, and that does unlock at Milestone 3, and it doesn't have to be a specific kind of mining. So at just Milestone 3, you could have the potential to unlock this building. And doing so will give you a +2% industrial efficiency citywide, and then +10% ore deposits citywide as well. Then we have the Dairy House. again unlocking at milestone 3 of large village and requiring 10 agricultural area hub buildings. And the first specialized industry for agriculture you do unlock at milestone 3, so again, you'll be able to unlock this at milestone 3, no problem. And this will give you a plus 2% industrial efficiency citywide, as well as plus 2% export profits citywide. So with this, you can make a little bit more money for your city. Then we have the paper factory. This also requires milestone 3 of large village, and then 10 forestry area hub buildings. Similar to the vehicle factory, while it says only milestone 3 is required, it will really require at least milestone 4 of grand village, because that is when the forestry specialized area unlocks. If you place this building in your city, you'll get a plus 5% industrial efficiency city-wide. Then we move on to the chemical plant, again requiring milestone 1 of tiny village, and this one only requires 8,000 cells of industrial manufacturing buildings. And this, of course, is just your regular yellow industrial zoning. And if you place it in your city, you'll get a plus 1% industrial efficiency citywide. Then we have the fuel plant. Again, it will require milestone 1 of tiny village, and this one requires 50 level 5 industrial manufacturing buildings. I forgot to mention this earlier, but of course there's an obvious difference between cells and buildings. Cells are the individual zoning squares. So in here, all of these little gray boxes are cells. If it wants an actual building, it won't matter how many cells that building takes up. You could have a 2x2 building, or you could have a 4x6 building. For this, you will need full buildings at level 5 to unlock this, and you'll need 50 of them. The benefits, though, are really great. So you get a plus 2% industrial efficiency citywide, and then you also get a minus 5% industrial ground pollution and minus 5% industrial air pollution citywide. The next building that we have is Switch On, which is, again, milestone 1 of tiny village, and this one requires 100 level 5 industrial manufacturing buildings. It also requires colleges, and it also requires 1 college. Colleges are unlocked at the second milestone of small village and are found within the education development tree. They only cost 1 development point, so you should be able to have access to colleges pretty early on. And so if you place this building, you'll get a plus 2% industrial efficiency citywide and a plus 1 college graduation chance citywide. The next building is Pharma. So again, milestone 1, but really milestone 2, because you will need also a medical university. So again, medical universities are found within the education and research development tree. You will have needed, of course, to purchase the college first, as well as the university, and then the sub-building of medical university before you can unlock this building. On top of that, you'll need a population of at least 10,000 people in your city. And if you place this in your city, you'll get a plus 1% university graduation chance citywide, and a plus 5% interest in university education citywide, and then of course, some industrial efficiency of plus 2% citywide. The oil refinery is pretty similar to the pharma building. You'll need at least universities unlocked, so at least milestone 2, and you'll also need to have purchased the college, university, and the technical university, which is just the other branch of the university tree. Now this one won't require a specific population, but it does instead require 10,000 cells of industrial manufacturing buildings. Again, now that's just the squares of zoning. You don't have to have a specific number of buildings for this one. And you'll get a plus 1% university graduation chance citywide, and a plus 5% interest in university education, and plus 2% industrial efficiency citywide. The last category we have are offices, and the first 3 are fairly simple in their requirements. The first one is Principus, and you'll need at least milestone 4 of Grand Village, which is when low-density office buildings unlock, and then you'll need 2,000 cells of offices. If you place this in your city, you'll get a minus 2 crime rate within 500 meters, a plus 5 well-being within 500 meters, and then a plus 1% university graduation chance, plus 5% interest in university education, and plus 1% office efficiency citywide. Next we have Coder Park. Again, you'll need milestone 4, as well as this time 5,000 cells of low-density office buildings. You'll get plus 5 well-being within 1 kilometer, and then you'll have the same citywide benefits as before, plus 1% university graduation chance, plus 5% interest in university education, and plus 1% office efficiency. The next one is called the Incaisarium, and again, milestone 4, and then 10,000 cells of low-density office buildings. That plus 5 well-being will extend to 1.5 kilometers, and you'll get the same benefits as before, plus 1% university graduation chance, plus 5% interest in university education, and plus 1% office efficiency for your entire city. Then we move on to the multi-story multimedia building. You'll need milestone 10 first of small city, which is when high-density office buildings unlock. Then you'll need at least 3,000 cells of high-density office buildings and 5 radio masts. Radio masts are unlocked at milestone 5 and are found under the Communications tab. They do not have a development node. They're just the first thing that unlocks in the Communications tab. But you'll need 5 of them in your city to unlock this building. And if you place it, you'll get +5 well-being within 1 kilometer, and then you'll have +1% university graduation chance, +5 interest in university education, and +2% office efficiency citywide. Then we have the waterfall array. Again, you'll need milestone 10 of small city first, and 6,000 cells of high-density offices. You'll also need a server farm. Server farms are found under the Communications Development tab, and you can access them immediately after unlocking it, but you will need 4 development points to do so. If you place this in your city, you'll get a +5 well-being within 1.5 kilometers now, and then the same benefits as before. +1% university graduation chance, +5% interest in university, +2% office efficiency for your entire city. And our very last signature building is the Stylist Tower. This will again, of course, require milestone 10 of small city, and you'll need 12,000 cells of high-density offices. And it has all the same benefits as the last building, +1% university graduation chance, +5% interest in university education, and +2% office efficiency for your entire city, as well as a +5 well-being now within 2 kilometers of the building itself. And that is all of the signature buildings to date. While it's certainly possible to get every single one of them in one city, they definitely lend themselves a little bit to specialization and really picking which ones will benefit your city the most. But of course, there's nothing stopping you from using all of them all at once. But otherwise, that wraps up this video on signature buildings. As always, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful. And if so, I would really appreciate you leaving a like below to let me know that you enjoyed it. And if you're feeling particularly chatty, feel free to let me know in the comments which building you like best and which ones you can't wait to place first in your city. Me personally, I can't wait to use the Vehicle Factory. I grew up around the Motor City and would love to pay homage to it and maybe make a Motor City myself in Cities Skylines too. I would also really love to make a series out of these overview videos, and I'm thinking of doing city service buildings next. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see others like it, feel free to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a thing. Otherwise, that is all I have for you today. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.